You can sleep in the laundry room, it's warm enough. Just keep your voice down after 8. That's what my daughter said. The same daughter I once sat with through 3 days of labor, holding her hand while she screamed and cursed and called me the only person who understood her. That daughter, Martha. And that's what she offered me, a corner of her house, barely big enough to turn around in, as long as I stayed quiet. Like I was some kind of appliance she didn't want to disturb the baby. I remember just standing there, my cane tucked under one arm, my overnight bag still zipped, her words hanging in the air like the scent of bleach. I wanted to believe she didn't mean it, that maybe she was tired or distracted or still angry from an earlier argument with Matt, her boyfriend, the one with too many side hustles and not enough income. But no, she meant it. And worse, it wasn't the first time she'd said something like that. Just the first time I'd really heard it. It didn't start this way. After my knee surgery, Martha insisted I come stay with them. Said it would be temporary, that I shouldn't be alone at this age, that we're family and we look after each other. I was touched. I'd always prided myself on being independent. I'd handled my own affairs since George died 8 years ago, paid off the condo, kept the garden alive, even learned how to fix the leaking sink, thanks to YouTube and a very patient plumber named Miguel, who walked me through it on speakerphone. But when you're 76 recovering from surgery and your only child offers you a room in her renovated duplex, you say yes. Not because you need it, but because somewhere deep down, you want to feel wanted. Martha picked me up from the rehab center in the Tesla I bought her for her 40th birthday. It still smelled like new leather and coffee. She always kept a cup in the holder, even when she didn't drink it. "That's how you know it's mine," she joked once. I'd sold my Mercedes a few weeks prior. It wasn't practical anymore, and Martha had been under so much stress with Matt trying to start his own consulting firm, whatever that meant. I thought the Tesla might help her feel stable, respected. And for a while, things were good. The first week at her house was almost sweet. She made me grilled cheese and tomato soup, just like I used to make her when she was little. We watched old episodes of Jeopardy on her oversized TV, and she even showed me how to stream The Crown. She called me Queen Mum and kissed my forehead. It felt like a second chance. She told me to make myself at home. So I did. I rearranged a few things in the kitchen, just the mugs and the spice rack, really. I washed dishes by hand, even though she had a dishwasher, 'cause that's how I was raised. I folded laundry, wiped the counters, vacuumed under the dining table after the kids finished dinner. Martha didn't ask me to. No one did. But I wanted to be useful, and I didn't want to be seen as a burden. In this country, especially at my age, the worst thing you can be is a burden. Old people here aren't seen. Not unless we're funny, frail, or funding someone's GoFundMe. But little by little, the warmth started to crack. It began with the bathroom. Martha came home one night, frazzled from work, and found my toothbrush in the main bathroom. She didn't yell. Martha doesn't yell. But she did smile, that tight, cold smile, and say, "Mom, it's just that Matt needs this space to get ready in the morning. Maybe you could use the downstairs sink instead." I nodded. Of course. It was her house after all. Her rules. I told myself not to make it a thing. Then came the shoes. I left mine by the front door, I always have. But one afternoon, I found them moved into a plastic bin labeled mud. No note, no words. Just a message: you don't belong here. Not really. Still, I told myself I was imagining things. After the toothbrush and the shoes, I started noticing everything. Not because I'm sensitive. I've spent decades in boardrooms filled with men who only learned my name when they needed their quarterly reports. But because there's a kind of intuition that comes with age. Not fear, not suspicion, just clarity. I began asking for permission. Is it okay if I use the oven? Would it bother anyone if I made tea now? Is the laundry machine in use? And each question felt like a step backward. A small, quiet surrender. I was sleeping downstairs by then. Martha called it the guest suite when I moved in, but after a few weeks it became clear it wasn't much of a suite at all. It was the laundry room repurposed barely. A rollaway bed next to the washer-dryer, a shaky lamp, and a single drafty window that opened into the alley. I brought my own blanket down. I told myself it was temporary, that it was kindness, that I was lucky. Then one afternoon, and I remember this clearly, because the mail had just come, and I was holding a Pottery Barn catalog. I didn't subscribe to, I asked, when Matt moves out next month, do you think I could move back into the upstairs room for a little while? Martha didn't look up from her phone. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her tone distant, practiced. Mom, this setup works. Matt really needs his space. And we're just trying to keep the energy calm in the house, you know. She paused, still not meeting my eyes. If you can keep things low-key and not disrupt the balance, you can absolutely stay. Just maybe avoid the upstairs after 8 p.m. She said it like she was offering a compromise, like letting me stay in the corner of a house I'd helped renovate that I had, at that point already invested over $80,000 into, was some sort of favor. I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. But something shifted. That night, I sat on the edge of the cot, knees wrapped in a heating pad, listening to laughter drift down from the living room above. Someone had opened a bottle of wine. I could smell it through the vent. Mia, my granddaughter, giggled at something Matt said. No one came to say goodnight. I looked around the room at the plastic bins of off-season clothes that lined the wall, at the detergent bottles stacked neatly by the folding table, at my framed photo of George now propped up between a broom and a box of dryer sheets. And I thought, you've been edited out. Not out of malice, not all at once, but slowly, strategically, one room at a time. 3 days later, I received an email alert from my bank. Martha had requested account access through a shared budgeting app. I hadn't said yes. She hadn't asked. It wasn't the first time I'd been surprised. She'd already moved some of my mail upstairs to keep the kitchen counter clean. She'd added me to the grocery store rewards account without asking, and then told me, you buy stuff too. It just makes sense. Apparently, sense now meant control. That evening, I started writing in a notebook I kept hidden in my purse. Not a journal, a list. Tesla for Martha, $61,275 new kitchen counters. $8,940 Matt's debt consolidation. Partial $6,000. Private tutor for Mia, $3,200. Electric bill. March just this once. $412. Holiday groceries, 2022. 2023, $1. $150. Number of times I babysat without being asked, 109. Number of times I was thanked, 4. I wasn't keeping score. Not really. I just needed to see it all in one place. To stop pretending this was normal. Because the truth is, manipulation rarely shows up wearing a villain's mask. Sometimes it comes dressed in yoga pants and smiles, offering you decaf tea and a space of your own. In the laundry room. Do you know what it feels like to be tolerated? I don't mean hated. No one raised their voice at me. No one slammed a door or said the words out loud. But when someone tolerates you, you know it. You feel it in the little silences, in the way your footsteps seem louder than they used to be, in the way people don't ask you how your day was because they already assume it wasn't much. I started noticing those things after the budgeting app incident. You remember the one Martha signed me up for without even asking? That was the beginning of the line. The one I hadn't realized I'd crossed. Let me ask you something and answer it honestly in your heart. Have you ever been in a house that wasn't yours even though your name paid for half the new bathroom tiles? That's how it felt. Martha never said you're not welcome, but the house stopped behaving like I belonged. The thermostat became a point of tension. If I turned it up past 70, I'd find it reset by the time I came back from my walk. One afternoon, Matt looked straight at me and said with a smile, "Mind you, we try to be eco-conscious here. Not everyone's built for sweater weather, I guess. You ever been insulted in a way that was too polite to fight?" Yeah. That. There was also the groceries. One day, I picked up my usual items, English muffins, my tea, some strawberries. Martha added the receipt to her budgeting spreadsheet and circled a line at the bottom. "Just so we're all clear. Mom, these are your things, right? I'll separate them from the household cost." It wasn't rude, but it was sharp, like being carved out of the group photo. So I started keeping my own bag in the fridge, a little canvas tote with my yogurt, my fruit, my tea, tucked on the lowest shelf like a tenant in my daughter's home. Does that sound familiar to you? Because if you've ever kept your favorite things separate, just to avoid being accused of taking up too much space, I want you to know that's not kindness. That's survival. And it didn't stop there. One evening, Mia, my granddaughter, came home from school and dropped her backpack by my feet. She was breathless with excitement. "Grandma, guess what I told my teacher? You used to be a CFO, and she said that's amazing." I smiled. It was the first time in weeks someone remembered I was something before this. Before being mom or the woman in the basement. But before I could reply, Matt came around the corner. "She's not a CFO anymore, kiddo. She's retired." Big difference. He didn't say it with cruelty. He said it like a fact, like someone pointing out the weather. And Martha. She didn't say a word, just kept scrolling on her phone. That night, I sat at my makeshift desk, an ironing board I'd propped up near the washer, and I opened my notebook again. This time, I didn't write money. I wrote things I'd done since moving in folded 28, loads of laundry, cooked 41 meals, picked Mia up from school 17 times, washed 8 pans. No one said, "Thank you for," bit my tongue 23 times that I can count. And then I underlined the last one. Bit my tongue. Why do we do that? Why do women, especially older women, swallow so much discomfort just to keep the peace? I'll tell you what I think. Because somewhere along the line, someone told us that being needed is the same thing as being valued. And that is the most dangerous lie we've ever believed. I remember the night the idea first appeared, the one I tried to swat away like a fly in the kitchen. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't even a voice. It was a whisper, barely audible. You could leave. It came after I found a sticky note on the milk carton in the fridge. written in Martha's tidy handwriting, for Mia only. Please don't open. It was oat milk. I don't even drink oat milk. But it wasn't about the milk. It was about being told not to touch something in a refrigerator I'd helped stock. That whisper you could leave it didn't come as rebellion. It came as a possibility. I didn't act on it. Not yet. But I let it settle like tea leaves at the bottom of a mug. A few days later, I overheard a conversation I was clearly not meant to hear. I'd just come in from a walk, a short one, because my knee was flaring again, and I paused in the hallway when I heard Matt's voice. She's still sitting on money, Martha. She's got that pension. And if we're covering groceries and bills while she's here, Martha cut him off. Don't. She's my mother. But she didn't say she's helping. She didn't say she's family. She said don't. Like it was messy. Like it was complicated. I stepped back before they noticed me. I didn't want to hear the rest, but I already had. Have you ever heard someone talk about you like you're a number on a spreadsheet? Like your presence has a value and they're just trying to figure out what they can extract from it? That's when I stopped feeling guilty. That weekend, Matt left a folder on the kitchen table. Not addressed to me, just left open. Inside was a spreadsheet: expenses, monthly breakdowns, red columns, and overdue balances. In the margin, a line highlighted in yellow: potential E's contribution, E. Not Mom, not Mrs. Monroe. Just the first letter of my name, like I was a pending transaction. I folded the folder shut, and I sat down at the dining table, not the folding tray I used in the laundry room, and I sipped my tea slowly. You know what struck me? No one came in to stop me. No one said, Mom, what are you doing here? No one said, you okay? Because no one noticed. Later that night, Martha knocked softly on the frame of the laundry room door. Hey, Mom. Just a heads up, Matt's applying for a small business grant. He might ask you to co-sign, but no pressure. Just think about it. I looked up from my notebook. Does he know I haven't co-signed for anyone since George died? She smiled. Tired. He just thinks it could help. Help who I asked. She didn't answer. That night I made a new kind of list. Not of things I'd done, not of money. A list of what I hadn't done. I hadn't set boundaries. I hadn't said no. I hadn't asked for a key to the upstairs. I hadn't told them how it felt to eat dinner alone in a laundry room. I hadn't asked for anything. That last one. That's where the shame lived. Because when you raise your children to believe your love comes without limits, they believe it. Even when they're grown. Even when they should know better. So I lay there that night, eyes open to the ceiling tiles, and I finally asked myself out loud, what would happen if I left, not stormed out, not made a scene, just left, moved into something small, something mine, bought my own milk, set my own thermostat, put my toothbrush wherever I damn well pleased? Would the world fall apart, or would I finally exhale? I didn't pack a bag that night. No. This wasn't that kind of decision. You don't leave a life like mine in a rush. You unwind it one thread at a time. Quietly. Carefully. Like untying a knot that's been holding your spine together. And maybe you know what I mean. Maybe you've stayed too long somewhere, not because you couldn't leave, but because you didn't want to be the one who left. There's a difference. The next morning I called my bank. Yes, I'd like to remove a linked account, I said. The man on the line sounded no older than Mia's babysitter. "No problem, Ms. Monroe. May I ask why?" I hesitated, then smiled to myself. "Because I've remembered where my edges are." He didn't ask again. Then I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Ruthie Holloway. We worked together in finance back when shoulder pads were in style, and women in boardrooms had to talk twice as fast to be heard half as loud. Ruthie answered on the third ring. Still sharp, still bold. "Eleanor Monroe," she said, without hello. "Either you're dead or you finally got tired of pretending everything's fine." I laughed a real laugh. First one in weeks. Can it be both? We talked for over an hour. She lived in Oregon now. Coastal town, tiny porch, big views. No husband, no grown children trying to monetize her guilt. "You want a place to breathe?" she asked. "You can start here. No questions. I'll make the guest room smell like lemon again." I didn't say yes, not right away, but I wrote her address down in my notebook, not the list notebook, a new one. And then I made another call. This one to a lawyer. You ever revise your will? It's like spring cleaning for the soul. You pick up everything you once thought was important, the inherited dishes, the silver coins, the vague promises, and ask yourself, who did I become when no one was looking, and who do I want to take care of when I'm gone? Martha wasn't left out entirely. I'm not vindictive. But I made changes. I set up a living trust. I appointed no co-signers. And I created a small scholarship in my name for women over 60 who want to start over. Maybe they left someone. Maybe they were left behind. Either way, they deserve to begin again. And just between us, it felt damn good. You know, when you're young, everyone warns you about being reckless. Nobody warns you about being too reasonable for too long. Leaving doesn't always start with a suitcase. Sometimes it starts with a drawer. I opened mine that night, the tiny one in the laundry room they called my space. It held a pair of socks, some lotion, and the little ceramic box where I kept my rings. The box was a gift from George back when we still gave each other small things without needing a reason. I held it for a long time, not because I couldn't decide, but because I was saying goodbye, not to the house, not to Martha, to the version of myself who had waited too long to be respected. You ever done that? Held an object and realized you'd become someone smaller than you meant to be. The next day, I booked a one-way ticket. Not far, just to Portland, near Ruthie. The travel site asked add return trip. I clicked no without hesitation. I waited until the house was quiet. Matt had taken Mia to gymnastics, and Martha was on her weekly Zoom call, the one where she muted herself to roll her eyes at coworkers. I knew the rhythm. I'd learned it better than I should have. I left a note. Nothing dramatic. Martha, thank you for the time and space. I've decided to move into a place of my own, something smaller, simpler. Please don't worry. I'm fine. I need this. I'll always love you. Mom, I didn't say sorry. Because I wasn't. I left my mug behind. The blue one with the chip on the handle, the one they always shoved to the back of the cupboard. I hope someone finds it one day and wonders what it meant. At the curb, I stood beside my suitcase. Not the big rolling one, just the small carry-on. It held what mattered. One photo of George and me in Vermont, my notebook, my walking shoes, a scarf Mia gave me when she was 6, and the ceramic box I didn't look back at the house. If you've ever walked away from a place that taught you how invisible you could become, then you know. Looking back is just a way of asking yourself to stay. As the car pulled up, the driver rolled down the window. Eleanor, yes. Headed somewhere special. Yes, I said. Somewhere that's mine. He didn't ask more. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe he'd driven other women like me before. And as we pulled away, I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Not a sob. Not even a sigh. Just release. There's a kind of quiet that comes when you stop explaining yourself. It's not peace yet, but it's the road that leads there. I used to think stillness meant waiting. Waiting for someone to call. Waiting for permission. Waiting for life to begin again. But in the quiet of that first morning, alone in a cottage the size of my old living room closet, I realized something I wish I'd known 20 years earlier. Stillness is not waiting. It's choosing. Choosing to stop rushing, to stop appeasing, to stop performing. It's the radical act of letting the world spin without begging it to take you with it. The air smelled like salt and cedar. The windows had a stubborn streak just like me. And the only sound was the steady hum of the old refrigerator and the soft tick of the second-hand clock Ruthie left on the wall. You'd laugh if you saw it. A cottage so small you could make tea and fold laundry without taking a full step. But let me ask you something and answer honestly. Have you ever had a space that was entirely yours, even if it was tiny? A space where you didn't have to explain why your light was on, where no one expected you to cook clean tiptoe cosine or smile on cue. If you have, then you know how precious that kind of space is. And if you haven't, my dear, it is not too late. I unpacked slowly, like each item was a declaration. My scarf from Mia faded, but soft, went over the back of the wobbly chair. My toothbrush, for the first time in years, got its own holder. Not a cup next to someone else's. Not tucked behind a cabinet. Just mine. I even bought a mug. It wasn't expensive, but it was heavy, real ceramic, made by hand, blue with a swirl of gray through the middle. I chose it because it didn't match anything. Because I didn't want to match anything anymore. I sat by the window with my tea lemon ginger no sugar and let the sun find my face through the curtains. No one needed me. No one was waiting. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel useless. I felt unburdened. You see, we don't talk enough about how freedom can feel lonely at first. Like when you finally take off shoes that never fit right. Your feet are sore before they heal. Later that day, I walked down to the ocean. It was only 3 blocks, but it felt like miles away from the version of myself I'd left behind. The wind at the shore wasn't cruel like the voices I'd grown used to, the ones that asked if I was being too sensitive, too quiet, too much. No, the wind was honest. And that honesty felt like grace. Standing there barefoot in the sand, I ask myself something simple. What does peace look like for me? Not for them, not for my daughter, not for the version of me they built their lives around, but me. And maybe you need to ask yourself that too. What does peace look like for you? Is it smaller, quieter, slower? Is it somewhere you can finally breathe with your mouth open, eat without guilt, sleep past 7 and laugh at nothing? That evening, Ruthie came by with a pot of lentil stew and a bottle of red wine. She didn't ask questions. She didn't praise me for leaving. She just handed me a bowl and said, You're here now, that's enough. And somehow it was. The second morning, I forgot to set an alarm. And nothing bad happened. No one knocked on the door. No one called me lazy. No one asked if I remembered to bring in the mail or to watch the pot so it doesn't boil over. I simply woke up when my body said it was time. And if you've never had that quiet luxury of waking for no one but yourself, let me tell you, it's not indulgence. It's restoration. I started making small routines. Not the kind dictated by others, school pickup, laundry rotation dinner for 5 by 6. No. These were mine. A walk at 8 a.m. if my knees allowed. One slice of toast, always with real butter, not heart-healthy spread. A book by the window until I forgot what time it was. You know what surprised me? I didn't miss the noise. I missed being heard. There's a difference. Ruthie brought over some paint swatches that afternoon. You want to do something radical, she asked, holding up a card called Oyster Gray. I laughed. Radical used to mean marching on Wall Street. Now it means repainting a wall. She grinned. Start where you are. And so we painted one wall, just one. But every brushstroke felt like a reclaiming. It wasn't about color. It was about declaring presence. This space isn't borrowed. This life isn't conditional. This wall, this room, this quiet is mine. That night, I lit a candle. Just because. Not for a birthday. Not for a prayer. Not because guests were coming. Just for the scent, vanilla and cedar, and the soft flicker that made the room feel like a whisper instead of a sentence. I sat with it. No television, no phone, just me, and the candle, and the memory of a woman I used to be, finally returning to the skin I still live in. You see, there's a difference between being alone and being abandoned. Abandonment feels like a locked door. Aloneness chosen. Aloneness feels like a window cracked open. One evening about a week after I moved in, I received a voicemail. Martha's voice tight and clipped. Mom, I just wanted to check that you're okay. Mia asked why you haven't called. Anyway, we're figuring things out. Just, I don't know. Call if you want. I listened. Then I deleted it. Not out of spite, but because I no longer needed to prove anything. Not my worth. Not my usefulness. Not my loyalty. Let them figure things out. I was figuring myself out too, finally. And here's the most honest thing I can tell you. I didn't know how much space I took up until I stopped apologizing for it. I didn't know how loud my soul was until I let the room be still enough to hear it. And I didn't know how ready I was not to fight, not to flee, but to begin. Not again, not over, just begin. From here. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you no longer need to be understood. You just need to be clear. It was a Sunday morning when I heard her knock. 3 soft raps on the screen door, just enough to stir the wind chimes Ruthie had hung from a bent nail. I already knew who it was. You learn the sound of your child's hesitation even after 40 years, even through a door. I opened it gently. Martha stood there, arms crossed, mouth tight like she was bracing for something. A lecture? A guilt trip? A mother who'd begged to be welcomed back. But I wasn't holding any of those things. I was holding a cup of tea. Hi, Mom, she said. I was in the area. I smiled. Not with pity. Not with triumph. Just a small smile, the kind you give someone who's late, but still welcome. Want to come in? She hesitated. Just for a second. Then stepped inside, scanning the space like she couldn't quite believe it belonged to me. Maybe it was the calm. Maybe it was the absence of apology. We sat, not at a kitchen table full of bills, not in a car parked outside gymnastics, just two women, aging mother, grown daughter, no armor, no audience. She looked tired, older than I remembered, and for the first time I didn't feel the urge to fix that. I simply let the silence stretch, not to punish her, but to honor the fact that I no longer owed anyone an immediate answer. Eventually she spoke. "Mia's been asking about you." I nodded. "I think about her every day." Martha looked down at her hands, picked at a thread in her sleeve. "You left so suddenly." "No," I said gently. "I left slowly. You just didn't notice until I was gone." Have you ever said something like that calmly, clearly, and felt your spine straighten just a little? Not because you were trying to win, but because you were finally done disappearing. She blinked, swallowed. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, Mom." I know she believed that, and I didn't need to argue. I know I said, but you did. That's the thing no one tells you about forgiveness. Sometimes it sounds like truth spoken plainly, not sweetness layered over silence. Martha stared at the floor for a long while after I said it. I know she repeated finally, softer this time. And then came the question. I think she had carried the whole drive. "Can we come visit?" It wasn't a demand. It wasn't guilt. It was a request. A sentence with a question mark at the end, something I hadn't heard from her in years. I breathed in and out. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to be very careful with what came next. You see, when you spend years giving too much, the most radical thing you can do isn't slamming the door, it's opening it. Carefully. With terms. With truth. With your spine intact. "You can," I said, "but you'll need to call first. And I won't be changing my schedule. And I won't be signing anything." Martha blinked. A flicker of surprise, maybe even discomfort. "Okay," she said. "Okay." That was it. No hug, no tears, just an acknowledgement. She stood up, looked around one last time, eyes lingering on the little things I'd placed deliberately, the chipped ceramic box, the painted wall, the single framed photo of me and Mia building a sandcastle, laughing with our faces sunburned and soft. "You seem different." "I am," I said, and I was. After she left, I didn't cry. I sat on the porch with my tea still warm and watched the clouds drift like they had nowhere to be. Ruthie joined me later, no questions asked. She brought a crossword puzzle and half a banana bread. We didn't talk about Martha. We talked about books. And how good it feels to not have to answer the phone if you don't want to. And how you can reinvent yourself at 68, 73, or 84 if you're willing to let go of who everyone else thought you were. That night, I pulled out a blank page. Not a list. Not a letter. Just a blank page. And at the top, I wrote, "What would it look like to live without permission?" Then I put the pen down. And I let that question hang in the air, not heavy, but wide, spacious, like the room I had made in my life. Somewhere down the road, I'll see Mia again. And when I do, I'll tell her the truth, that her grandmother left not because she was angry, but because she was ready to be a person again. Not just a role, not just a helper, not just a quiet presence in the corner of someone else's house. And maybe if I do this right, she'll grow up knowing that love doesn't mean erasing yourself, that sacrifice has limits, that kindness includes boundaries, and that it's never too late to begin again, not from scratch, but from stillness. So here I am, in my small home, with my chipped mug, and my quiet mornings, and my name said out loud by myself without hesitation. Eleanor, still here, still whole, finally home. But really, just the beginning. Have you ever had to reclaim your space, your peace, your name? Leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your voice. Don't forget to subscribe to Eleanor Speaks for more stories about dignity, boundaries, and bold beginnings, no matter your age. And if you know someone who needs to hear this today, share this video, because sometimes healing starts with a story.